Today's story has sparked plenty of conversations, both inside and outside Nigeria. Not because of a new court judgment or a major government announcement, but because of reports about a document said to have been issued from prison by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. According to a report published by Daily Post, notification letters linked to what was described as an IPOB leadership transition were reportedly sent to the United States, the United Kingdom, and several other countries. As with many developments surrounding IPOB, this report has generated strong reactions. But it's important to separate what has been reported from what has been independently confirmed. The report states that the letters were dated June 24, 2026, and were issued from the Sokoto Correctional Center, where Kanu is currently serving a life sentence. According to the publication, the letters were intended to notify foreign governments and diplomatic missions about an internal leadership transition within IPOB. At the time of reporting, there was no public confirmation from the government said to have received the notifications regarding any official response. Before we go further, if you enjoy balanced updates that focus on facts rather than rumors, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and share this report with others who want to stay informed. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We always appreciate respectful discussions backed by facts and informed opinions. Now, to understand why this story is attracting attention, we need to look at the wider background. For years, Nnamdi Kanu has remained one of the most talked about political figures in Nigeria. He founded IPOB, an organization that campaigns for the restoration of an independent Biafra. Over the years, the movement has attracted supporters both within Nigeria and among members of the Nigerian diaspora. At the same time, it has also remained highly controversial, with the Nigerian government maintaining its legal position against the organization and its activities. Because of that history, almost every statement attributed to Kanu attracts nationwide attention. Whether it relates to legal proceedings, internal organizational matters, or communications from prison, such developments often become major talking points across traditional media and social media. According to the Daily Post report, the latest communication was not presented as a political declaration to foreign governments. Instead, it was described as a notification informing international stakeholders of changes within the leadership structure of IPOB. The report says these notifications were directed to countries including the United States and the United Kingdom, as well as other international recipients. This immediately raised questions among many Nigerians. People began asking, why would such notifications be sent abroad? What exactly does an IPOB leadership transition mean? Does receiving a notification amount to recognition? Could this have any legal or diplomatic implications? These are reasonable questions, and based on what has been publicly reported so far, there are important distinctions to make. Receiving a letter does not necessarily mean endorsing its contents. Around the world, diplomatic missions and foreign governments receive thousands of letters, petitions, and notifications every year from political organizations, advocacy groups, private citizens, and civil society organizations. Simply receiving correspondence does not automatically indicate agreement, recognition, or support. That is why, as of the publication of the report, there was no indication that any of the governments mentioned had officially acknowledged or acted upon the reported notifications. Another point attracting attention is the reference to an internal transition. Large organizations often make changes to leadership structures, delegate responsibilities, or update administrative arrangements. According to the report, the notifications were intended to communicate such internal developments to foreign recipients. However, beyond what was contained in the report, additional details about the practical effects of the reported transition were not independently verified at the time. This has naturally led to debate among observers. Supporters of IPOB may see the reported notifications as an attempt to demonstrate organizational continuity despite Kanu's imprisonment. Others believe the development is largely administrative and should not be interpreted beyond the claims made in the published report. Legal analysts, meanwhile, point out that developments within an organization do not automatically affect ongoing legal proceedings involving an individual. That distinction is important because Kanu's legal status remains separate from internal organizational decisions. Another reason this story has gained traction is because of the countries mentioned. Whenever the United States or the United Kingdom appear in headlines involving Nigerian political issues, public interest tends to increase quickly. Many people assume that such countries have taken action simply because they are mentioned. However, headlines do not always tell the complete story. Based on the report, what has been described is the sending of notifications, not announcements by those governments themselves. Until there are official statements from the relevant authorities, it would be premature to conclude that any diplomatic position has changed. For Nigerians both at home and abroad, this distinction matters because misinformation can spread rapidly whenever sensitive political topics trend online. In situations like this, reading beyond the headline becomes essential. As more information emerges, it will become clearer whether there are any official acknowledgements, responses, or additional documents that provide further context. For now, what is publicly available is the report describing the issuance of the notifications and the claims surrounding the reported leadership transition. We'll continue by looking at who reportedly signed the notifications, what they contained, the reactions that have followed, and why this development has generated so much discussion across Nigeria and among members of the diaspora. As discussions continued online, attention also shifted to the individuals mentioned in the report and the purpose of the reported communication. According to the Daily Post article, the notification was presented as an official communication regarding an internal transition within IPOB. The report attributes the information to those involved and describes the letters as being intended to inform selected foreign governments and diplomatic missions of changes within the organization structure. At the time the report was published, there was no public indication that the recipient governments had issued official responses acknowledging or acting on the notifications. That point is worth emphasizing because headlines can sometimes create an impression that goes beyond what has actually happened. In international diplomacy, embassies and government offices routinely receive letters, petitions, memoranda, and other forms of correspondence from organizations, advocacy groups, and private individuals. Receiving a document is not the same as accepting its contents or changing official policy. Any formal position by a government would typically come through an official statement or other public communication. For many Nigerians following this story, the natural question is, why notify countries like the United States and the United Kingdom in the first place? The answer may lie in the fact that IPOB has supporters living in different parts of the world. Over the years, discussions about the group's activities have extended beyond Nigeria because members of the Nigerian diaspora have continued to follow developments closely. Informing foreign governments, according to the report, appears to have been intended as a way of communicating what was described as an internal administrative change. Whether those governments choose to respond publicly is a separate matter. Another important aspect is the timing of the report. Nnamdi Kanu remains one of the country's most closely watched political figures, and news connected to him often attracts widespread public interest. Every court appearance, legal filing, statement from his lawyers, or reported communication tends to become a topic of discussion across television, radio, newspapers, and social media. Because of that attention, stories can spread very quickly, sometimes before all the facts are available. That is why it is always useful to rely on attributed reporting and to wait for additional confirmation where appropriate.